15 black actors who slept their way to the top. 15 names, 15 careers, and behind every single one of them, a powerful director or producer who made a decision that changed everything. But here is the question Hollywood has never wanted to answer directly. Where exactly is the line between a mentor who sees your talent and a power broker who expects something in return? One of these women was 16 years old. One won an Oscar and then disappeared from Hollywood for over a decade. One auditioned against two other famous actresses and still had to fight for the role. Before this video ends, you will see every one of these stories differently. Subscribe to Remembered Lives channel. Hit the bell, because we ask the questions the industry hopes you forget. Halle Berry. In 1991, Halle Berry was a 24-year-old actress with one television credit to her name, a short stint on the series Living Dolls, and a reputation in casting rooms as too beautiful to be taken seriously as a dramatic performer. Spike Lee was about to change that, but not in the way the gossip columns would later suggest. When Berry went in to read for Jungle Fever, Lee initially offered her the role of Flipper's wife, a respectable, contained part that would have left her exactly where she started. Berry had other ideas. She asked to read for Vivian, the crack-addicted girlfriend living on the street. Lee said no. He didn't see her that way. So Berry went home, stopped washing her hair for days, stripped off her makeup, and came back in looking like someone the character would actually be. Lee gave her the room. She delivered. She got the part. That story, told by Berry herself in multiple interviews over 30 years, is the actual origin story of her Hollywood career. Not a phone call, not a favor. A young actress who understood exactly what she needed to prove and was willing to do whatever it took to prove it. Jungle Fever was her feature film debut. The crack-addicted Vivian was her introduction to the industry on her own terms. What followed is one of the most decorated careers in Hollywood history. She starred opposite Jessica Lange in Losing Isaiah, 1995, played Dorothy Dandridge in the HBO biopic that earned her a Golden Globe in 2000, led the X-Men franchise from 2000 onward, and in 2002 won the Academy Award for Best Actress for Monsters Ball, becoming the first, and to this day, only black woman to win that category in Oscar history. The whispers that Spike Lee championed her because of something beyond her talent have followed her for decades. Lee has never addressed them. Berry has never addressed them. What Berry has addressed, repeatedly and on the record, is exactly how she got that role. She fought for it herself, against the director's initial judgment, and she won. The door Spike Lee opened in 1991 was opened because a 24-year-old refused to accept the easier part. Angela Bassett. Angela Bassett did not stumble into Hollywood. She prepared for it, with the kind of disciplined, systematic rigor that the industry rarely produces and almost never adequately rewards. She earned her Bachelor of Fine Arts from Yale University, one of the most selective drama programs in the world, and then spent years doing exactly what classically trained actors do: building a body of stage work, taking small television roles, waiting for a director who would understand what she was capable of. John Singleton understood it in 1991. When he cast Bassett in Boys in the Hood, he gave a Yale-trained actress a supporting role in a film that would become one of the most culturally significant debuts in American cinema. Singleton was 23 years old when he made that film. He became the youngest person and the first black filmmaker ever nominated for the Academy Award for Best Director. The two of them, a young black director from South Central and a classically trained black actress, were building something together at the exact moment Hollywood was least prepared to receive it. The industry gossip that followed suggested their professional bond had personal dimensions that explained Bassett's trajectory. The suggestion was that you couldn't explain a Yale-trained actress's rise without finding something inappropriate underneath it. This is what Hollywood does to successful black women. It looks for the shortcut. It looks for the favor. It refuses to accept that preparation plus opportunity equals a career. After Boys in the Hood, Bassett delivered the performance that permanently settled the argument. Her portrayal of Tina Turner in What's Love Got to Do with It, 1993, earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress and a Golden Globe nomination. She performed her own singing for the role, trained rigorously to replicate Turner's physicality, and produced a performance that Turner herself endorsed publicly. No director's personal feelings create that. She went on to Waiting to Exhale, 1995, How Stella Got Her Groove Back, 1998, and 4 decades later returned to the cultural conversation in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, 2022, earning yet another Oscar nomination at 64 years old, her second in a career that has refused to slow down or compromise. Tyrese Gibson. In 2001, John Singleton needed a lead for Baby Boy, a film about a 20-year-old black man in South Central Los Angeles who cannot grow up, cannot commit, and cannot leave. He needed someone with raw physical presence, emotional unpredictability, and zero acting experience that might soften the performance into something digestible. He found all three in Tyrese Gibson. Tyrese was a model and R&B singer. He had appeared in a Coca-Cola commercial that made him nationally recognized. He had 0 film credits. Singleton called him anyway. The result was a performance that film critics praised for its unflinching authenticity, a character who was simultaneously infuriating and heartbreaking, exactly as Singleton intended. 2 years later, Singleton cast him again in Too Fast, Too Furious, 2003, the sequel to the Fast and Furious franchise that Universal Pictures was building into one of the highest-grossing film series in history. Roman Pierce became one of the most popular characters in the franchise. Tyrese was suddenly in one of the biggest film machines in Hollywood. 2 major opportunities, same director, back-to-back. Hollywood noticed. And the tabloid narrative that followed was predictable and ugly. That Singleton's interest in Tyrese went beyond professional. That the casting decisions were explained by personal feeling rather than creative judgment. When Singleton died on April 28, 2019, at 51 years old following a stroke, Tyrese Gibson's response was raw and public and impossible to perform. He wept. He spoke about Singleton as the man who believed in him when no one else did, the father figure who gave an untested young man from a music background the chance to discover something about himself through acting. He called the loss irreparable. Nothing in that grief was consistent with a transactional relationship. Everything in it was consistent with what great mentorship between a director and an actor actually looks like when it's real and when it's gone. Taraji P. Henson. Before Empire, before Hidden Figures, before the Oscar nomination, before the magazine covers, Taraji P. Henson was a working actress who had spent years doing exactly what black actresses in Hollywood are required to do, proving herself in projects that barely deserved her, for pay that was publicly documented as insultingly low, in roles that critics celebrated while the industry continued to offer her less. Tyler Perry was one of the first powerful people in Hollywood to treat her differently. He cast her in I Can Do Bad All by Myself, 2009, and The Family That Prays, 2008, giving her leading roles in studio-distributed films at a moment when mainstream Hollywood was still largely pretending her category of actress didn't exist at the top of the call sheet. Perry paid her fairly. She has said so directly, in interviews where she has been specific about what that meant after years of being underpaid elsewhere. The Hollywood gossip machine immediately reached for its oldest, least imaginative narrative, that Henson's relationship with Perry had personal dimensions that explained his advocacy for her, that a successful black woman couldn't have simply been recognized and valued by a powerful black producer for the quality of her work, that there had to be something else underneath it. Here is what the record actually shows. Taraji P. Henson received an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress for The Curious Case of Benjamin Button in 2009, a David Fincher film that had nothing to do with Tyler Perry. She landed the role of Cookie Lyon in Empire in 2015 through a competitive process. She went on to receive a Golden Globe win for that role. In 2017, she starred in Hidden Figures alongside Octavia Spencer and Janelle Monáe, one of the highest-grossing biographical dramas in recent memory. What Tyler Perry gave her was a fair paycheck and substantial roles at a critical moment. What she did with every opportunity after that was entirely, demonstrably her own. Monique. The story of Monique and Lee Daniels is one of the most documented, most painful, and most instructive stories about power in Hollywood that the last 20 years have produced. It is not a rumor. It is a matter of public record, confirmed by both parties, including on stages and in courtrooms. In 2009, Monique played Mary, an abusive, monstrous, and ultimately tragic mother, in Lee Daniels' Precious. Her performance was devastating. She won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. She was on top of the world. Then, the phone stopped ringing. Monique has stated publicly, including in a 2015 Hollywood Reporter interview, that Lee Daniels personally called her and told her she had been blackballed. His explanation? She had refused to conduct unpaid international promotional appearances for Precious after completing her contractual obligations. She had been paid $50,000 for the film. The studio wanted more of her time. She said no. The word that went out about her was difficult. Lee Daniels, Oprah Winfrey, and Tyler Perry, the three most powerful black figures in Hollywood at the time, all distanced themselves from her. Their combined influence in the industry was enough to effectively end her access to major projects for over a decade. In April 2022, Lee Daniels walked onto the stage of Monique's comedy show at St. George Theater in Staten Island, New York, and said publicly, "I am so sorry for hurting you in any way that I did. She was my best friend." Monique accepted the apology. They announced a new collaboration, the Netflix film The Deliverance, 2024. The reunion was real. The damage was also real. What the gossip about their relationship always missed was the actual story. A woman who refused to work for free in an industry that punished her for it for over a decade, and who was eventually vindicated by the very person who admitted to her that he had helped it happen. Thandiwe Newton. The story of Thandiwe Newton and director John Dwigan is not rumor. It is not speculation. It is a confirmed fact, stated by Newton herself in multiple on-the-record interviews, reconfirmed across decades as the cultural conversation around exploitation in the entertainment industry matured enough to receive it accurately. Newton was 16 years old when she auditioned for Dugan's 1991 film Flirting in Australia. Dugan was 39. He cast her, and then he pursued a romantic relationship with a teenager who had just entered a professional environment in which he held complete authority over her career. The relationship lasted 6 years. Newton later told InStyle magazine, "I was a very shy, very sweet girl. I wasn't in control of the situation. In retrospect, although it was legal because I was 16, I was coerced." She described feeling unable to say no to someone who controlled whether she worked. She described the long-term psychological damage it caused. She pursued therapy. She eventually spoke about it publicly, not because she needed sympathy, but because she understood that the silence around what had happened to her was part of a system that protected people like Dugan. What makes Newton's story particularly instructive in the context of Hollywood gossip is how it was framed at the time. Tabloids and industry insiders did not describe a teenage girl being exploited by a man in a position of power. They described a young actress strategically using her sexuality to advance her career. The predator was made sympathetic. The victim was made calculating. Newton went on to build an extraordinary career entirely independent of John Dwigan. She earned Emmy Awards and BAFTA nominations for Westworld. She delivered one of the finest performances in the Mission Impossible franchise. She appeared in Crash, 2005, which won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Her talent had nothing to do with him. Her trauma did. Naomi Campbell. In 2015, Naomi Campbell joined the cast of Empire as Camilla Marks, a glamorous, scheming love interest who arrived mid-season and immediately consumed every scene she was in. The question Hollywood asked almost immediately was not whether she was good in the role. It was, why did Lee Daniels cast her? The answer that gossip preferred was personal connection, favoritism, a friendship between two high-profile figures that opened a door professional merit alone would not have unlocked. The more interesting answer is the one that actually explains the casting decision. Empire in 2015 was a cultural phenomenon. It premiered on January 7th of that year and drew 9.9 million viewers, a number that climbed every single week for the rest of the season, something that had never happened before in American broadcast television history. By the finale, 17.6 million people were watching. The show needed names. It needed spectacle. It needed figures whose mere presence communicated something about the world of extreme wealth, power, and ambition it was depicting. Naomi Campbell is one of the most recognized human beings on Earth. She has been one of the most famous faces in the world since the late 1980s. Her casting was not just creatively defensible, it was commercially strategic. She brought an audience, a level of tabloid attention, and a specific kind of authority to the frame that no amount of conventional casting could replicate. And when the cameras rolled, she delivered. She was not playing a subtle character. She was playing Camilla Marks, a woman who operates entirely through intimidation, beauty, and calculation. Campbell had been doing exactly that, professionally, for 30 years. Lee Daniels and Campbell have described their relationship as a long-standing friendship. No evidence of anything beyond that has ever emerged. What has emerged is a performance that served the show exactly as intended. Terrence Howard. Terrence Howard's career trajectory is one of the most genuinely complicated stories in contemporary Hollywood, not because of the rumors that surround it, but because the documented facts are strange enough on their own to require no embellishment. By 2008, Howard had delivered an Oscar-nominated performance in Hustle and Flow, 2005, played James Rhodes in Iron Man, 2008, and established himself as one of the most intense dramatic actors of his generation. Then, he was replaced in Iron Man 2 by Don Cheadle over a salary dispute, a humiliation that was reported globally. Then came a series of public controversies involving domestic abuse allegations, bizarre interviews about mathematical theories he called teriology, and a general perception in Hollywood that he had become too difficult and too unpredictable to employ reliably. Lee Daniels cast him as Lucius Lyon in Empire anyway. The show premiered in January 2015 and became the most-watched drama debut in Fox's history. The gossip explanation was simple. Daniels had personal feelings for Howard that overrode professional logic. The documented explanation is more interesting. Daniels directed Howard in The Butler, 2013, and clearly understood something about how Howard's specific intensity, his volatility, his grandiosity, his refusal to be contained, translated into exactly the kind of operatic performance that Empire required. Lucius Lyon was not a role for a controlled, predictable actor. It was a role for someone who made the room uncomfortable. Daniels has defended Howard publicly multiple times throughout Empire's 6-season run. Their bond is undeniable and professionally well documented. Whether it exceeds professional loyalty is something neither man has confirmed. What neither man can dispute is the result. Terrence Howard anchored one of the most watched dramas in recent American television history for 103 episodes. Cuba Gooding Jr. In 1991, John Singleton was building Boys in the Hood, a film that had to be more than technically accomplished. It had to be true. The actors he cast had to carry the specific weight of South Central Los Angeles in their bodies, in their voices, in the way they moved through spaces that the film was committed to depicting without condescension or distance. He needed someone for the role of Trey Styles, the moral center of the film, the young man trying to build a future in a neighborhood designed to prevent exactly that. He chose Cuba Gooding Jr., 23 years old, son of the main ingredient lead singer, Cuba Gooding Sr., with a handful of small television credits and a background in competitive gymnastics and breakdancing. It was not an obvious choice. It became a defining one. Cuba's performance in Boys in the Hood announced a major actor. The film itself made $57.5 million on a $6.5 million budget, received 2 Academy Award nominations, and permanently changed what American cinema believed it could say about Black urban life. Singleton became the first black filmmaker and the youngest person ever nominated for Best Director at the Oscars. The gossip that followed suggested Cuba's trajectory was explained by a personal bond with Singleton that went beyond professional mentorship. This is a pattern that applies specifically to black actors who succeed too quickly for an industry that believes their success requires explanation. Cuba Gooding Jr. won the Academy Award for Best Actor in a Supporting Role for Jerry Maguire in 1997, 5 years after Boys in the Hood, with his now iconic "Show Me the Money" scene. John Singleton spoke at his Hollywood Walk of Fame ceremony. Their friendship was real. Their professional respect was mutual. The timeline of Cuba's success, 5 years between his breakthrough and his Oscar, tells the story of a career built on work, not favoritism. Lupita Nyong'o. Steve McQueen auditioned over 1,000 women for the role of Patsy in 12 Years a Slave. He compared the search to the legendary casting process for Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. The woman he chose had never appeared in a feature film. Lupita Nyong'o graduated from the Yale School of Drama in 2012. The 12 Years a Slave screenplay was the first script she received after graduation. She was preparing to move to Brooklyn and begin the process of building a career from nothing. What she was not preparing for was winning the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her film debut. Born March 1, 1983 in Mexico City to Kenyan parents, her father, Peter Anyang Nyong'o, was a visiting lecturer who later became a Kenyan senator. She grew up in Nairobi, studied film and theater at Hampshire College in Massachusetts, worked as a production assistant, returned to Kenya to appear in the MTV series Shuga, and then earned her Yale MFA. She arrived at McQueen's audition with a specific preparation for an extraordinarily demanding role. Patsy is a slave on a Louisiana plantation who is simultaneously the most skilled cotton picker on the property and the object of her enslaver's obsessive, violent desire. The role required communicating terror, dignity, and grief simultaneously, across scenes of almost unbearable physical intensity. McQueen saw what 1,000 other women could not provide, something he later described as an almost supernatural combination of vulnerability and strength. Nyong'o got the part. 12 Years a Slave won the Academy Award for Best Picture. Nyong'o won Best Supporting Actress. She was the first Kenyan actress to win an Academy Award. She went directly from that stage into Star Wars: The Force Awakens, 2015, Black Panther, 2018, and Us, 2019. The career that Steve McQueen's casting made possible was built entirely on what she brought to one of the most difficult roles in recent cinema history. Kerry Washington. When Scandal premiered on ABC on April 5, 2012, something happened that had not happened in American network television for 38 years. A black woman was the lead of a primetime drama on a major broadcast network. The last time it had happened was 1974, when Teresa Graves starred in Get Christy Love on ABC. In the 38 years between those two moments, not one broadcast network had placed a black woman at the center of a drama series. Kerry Washington knew exactly what she was stepping into. "If I didn't give it my all and do the best work I was capable of," she said, "they weren't going to put another black woman in the #1 role on a TV drama for another 40 years. She gave it everything. The show ran for 7 seasons. Washington was Emmy-nominated twice for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series, the first black woman nominated in that category in 18 years. She won the NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Actress in a Drama Series. Scandal became appointment television at a moment when appointment television was becoming increasingly difficult to achieve, drawing audiences that crossed every demographic line. Shonda Rhimes created the character of Olivia Pope with a specific real-world model, crisis manager Judy Smith, herself a black woman. That origin made the casting of a black actress not just culturally significant, but creatively logical. Rhimes held open auditions. Washington competed against Gabrielle Union and Taraji P. Henson, among others, for the role. She won it because of what she did in the room. The Kerry Washington effect, as NBC News named it, produced measurable results. Within 2 seasons of Scandal's success, Viola Davis was leading How to Get Away with Murder, also a Rhimes production. The door Washington opened in 2012 changed what broadcast networks believed was commercially viable. That is the actual legacy of a black actress and a black showrunner finding each other at exactly the right moment. Ice Cube. In 1991, Ice Cube was primarily known as one of the architects of gangsta rap, a founding member of NWA whose debut solo album, America's Most Wanted, 1990, had sold over 1 million copies and generated enormous controversy. He was not an actor. He had no film credits. John Singleton cast him as Doughboy in Boys in the Hood anyway, and the decision reframed what an entertainer from South Central Los Angeles could be in American culture. Doughboy is the moral counterweight to Cuba Gooding Jr.'s Trey Styles, the boy who never found a way out, whose violence is inseparable from his love, whose death at the end of the film is announced with a title card that lands like a blow. It required a performer who understood that world not as material, but as lived experience. Ice Cube, born O'Shea Jackson on June 15, 1969 in Baldwin Hills, Los Angeles, understood it from the inside. The performance was immediately recognized as something beyond a rapper dabbling in film. Critics praised its physical and emotional authenticity. Singleton, who had grown up in the same neighborhoods his film depicted, knew exactly what he was doing. He was casting the truth. What followed was one of the most sustained career pivots in entertainment history. Ice Cube wrote and starred in Friday, 1995, which became a cultural touchstone. He wrote and directed The Players Club, 1998. He joined the XXX franchise and the Are We There Yet series. He served as an executive producer on Straight Outta Compton, 2015, the NWA biopic that earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Screenplay, and introduced his story to a new generation. John Singleton's decision to cast a rapper with no acting experience as one of the 2 emotional centers of a landmark film created a template for what cross-platform talent could accomplish. 25 years of Ice Cube's film career flows directly from that casting choice. Viola Davis has won an Emmy Award, a Tony Award, and an Academy Award, making her one of only a handful of performers in history to achieve the triple crown of acting, and the first black woman to do so. She has accomplished this while being, by her own repeated public account, systematically underpaid and undervalued by an industry that spent decades treating her as a character actress rather than a leading one. The moment that changed the scale of her platform was Shonda Rhimes. In 2014, Rhimes created How to Get Away with Murder, a legal thriller built around Annalise Keating, a defense attorney of operatic complexity who was simultaneously brilliant, manipulative, traumatized, and uncontainable. Rhimes wanted Davis. ABC was initially uncertain whether a black woman in her late 40s who was not a conventional Hollywood leading type could anchor a broadcast network drama. How to Get Away with Murder premiered on September 25, 2014. It drew 14.9 million viewers. Davis won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series in 2015, the first black woman ever to win that category in Emmy history. She stood at the podium and quoted Harriet Tubman. The speech went globally viral within hours. Davis had been doing extraordinary work for 2 decades before Annalise Keating. She was Oscar-nominated for Doubt, 2008, for a supporting role in which she appeared on screen for fewer than 10 minutes. She won the Oscar for Fences, 2017, adapted from the August Wilson play she had performed on Broadway. She received a second Oscar nomination for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, 2020. What Shonda Rhimes gave her was not discovery. She was already one of the finest actors working in American film and theater. What Rhimes gave her was a broadcast audience of 15 million people and a role that demanded every instrument she possessed. Chadwick Boseman. Chadwick Boseman was already a working actor with a significant body of dramatic work before he played T'Challa. He had portrayed Jackie Robinson in 42, 2013, James Brown in Get On Up, 2014, and Thurgood Marshall in Marshall, 2017. three of the most consequential Black American figures of the 20th century in 3 consecutive biopics, a body of work with almost no precedent in Hollywood history. He was, by any measure, an actor in complete command of his craft. What Ryan Coogler did with him in Black Panther 2018 was something different. Coogler didn't just cast Boseman in a Marvel film. He built a world around what Boseman specifically could carry, a character who was regal, internally conflicted, bound by tradition, and tested by the most contemporary possible questions about Black identity, power, and responsibility. The film became the highest-grossing solo superhero origin film in Marvel history at the time, earning over $1.3 billion worldwide, and the first superhero film nominated for the Academy Award for Best Picture. Coogler had made Fruitvale Station 2013 and Creed 2015 before Black Panther. He was 31 years old when he directed it. The collaboration between a young Black director who understood what he was building and an actor who had spent years preparing to carry exactly this kind of weight produced something the industry had not seen before. A superhero film that functioned simultaneously as a geopolitical statement, a celebration of African aesthetic and intellectual tradition, and a commercially unstoppable global event. Chadwick Boseman died August 28, 2020, at 43, of colon cancer. He had been diagnosed in 2016 and had continued working through Black Panther, through Avengers Infinity War, through Avengers Endgame, through Da 5 Bloods, through Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, without ever making his illness public. His posthumous Academy Award nomination for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom honored a performance made while he was dying. The collaboration between Boseman and Coogler produced a cultural legacy that outlasted both the film and its star. Paula Patton. Paula Patton's appearance in Precious, 2009, represents one of the clearest examples of what Lee Daniels consistently did throughout his career. Identify Black actresses with genuine dramatic capability and give them serious material, at a moment when the rest of Hollywood was offering them something considerably less. Patton played Ms. Rain, the compassionate, persistent teacher who becomes the first adult in Clarice Precious Jones's life to treat her as a full human being. The role required warmth without sentimentality, patience without passivity, and the ability to hold the emotional center of scenes shared with Monique, whose performance was actively terrifying. Patton did all of it with a restraint that served the film precisely because it refused to compete with the chaos surrounding it. She had been building her career steadily through films that demonstrated range across genre. Deja Vu, 2006, alongside Denzel Washington. Hitch, 2005, with Will Smith. Deja Vu production work that showed she could command the screen in mainstream action territory. Precious showed she could do something harder, disappear into material that didn't need her to be glamorous or exciting, only true. Lee Daniels has been explicit throughout his career about his commitment to creating opportunities for Black performers who were being underutilized by a mainstream industry that had limited imagination about what they could do. His record supports that commitment. Monique, Gabourey Sidibe, Paula Patton, and Mariah Carey, Daniels cast her against type in the same film, all delivered work in Precious that their existing careers had not fully predicted. Patton's subsequent career included Mission Impossible: Ghost Protocol, 2011, in which she held her own in one of the most technically demanding action sequences in the franchise. The door Lee Daniels opened in 2009 was opened on the basis of what she could do, and what she did with it afterward confirmed the judgment. So here is what this list actually raises. In Hollywood, when a powerful director repeatedly casts the same actor, we call it loyalty. When a powerful producer champions a specific actress, we call it favoritism. And when a Black director builds a Black actress's career, we call it suspicious. The question worth asking in the comments is this: does Hollywood apply that same scrutiny to Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks? To Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio? Or does the skepticism only arrive when the director and the actor are both Black? Drop your honest answer below. And if this made you think differently about who gets the benefit of the doubt in this industry, share it. That is exactly what Remembered Lives channel is here for.